Hi everyone, I'm Christelle Huguet. I'm the head of research and development at Ipsen. I've been with the company for 5 years now. At Ipsen, we have a clear focus in 3 main therapeutic areas: oncology, neurology, and rare disease. And today in particular, we're going to talk more about our interest in the rare disease field. Our first real driver in rare disease is to address areas of very high unmet medical need. So really areas where patient symptoms are not addressed by standard of care, or trailblaze in areas where there are no current options for patients with rare disease. So we have a focus in 2 main areas: some very rare bone disease, like fibrodysplasia, ossificans, progressiva, or FOP, as well as some rare liver diseases, both in pediatric and in adult population. So in FOP, we have been trailblazing with the first ever approved treatment for FOP with Sohonos, followed by a very specific differentiated mechanism of action with fidrisertib in FOP, 2 differentiated methods to approach that indication. In rare disease liver focus, we have 2 products, 2 molecules, very different mode of action: a PPAR alpha delta with elafibranor, Iqirvo, and a bile acid transporter inhibitor with Bylvay. Iqirvo, or PPAR alpha delta, is indicated for primary biliary cholangitis, and Bylvay is indicated in PFIC, that is familial intrahepatic cholestasis, and that's a pediatric indication, as well as Alagille syndrome. We are also developing Bylvay in a 3rd indication, that is biliary atresia, and Iqirvo we're also developing in primary sclerosing cholangitis, another adult rare disease of the liver. So 2 products, 5 indications. So there are a few challenges when you work in rare disease. One is, if you think about the notion of rare disease, is the limited number of patients. So in particular, if we're thinking about FOP, this is more of an ultra rare disease. So you have a limited number of patients, and you also have a very limited amount of research that is happening in that space. So challenges on clinical trials and challenges on scientific understanding both. In terms of regulatory, this goes very much with the clinical trials. So trailblazing in validating a primary endpoint for registration, right? When we entered FOP development, nobody had been there before. No one had ever registered or even submitted a new approach for treating FOP. So we had to really work on the primary endpoint, which is heterotopic ossification. So that is extra bone that is growing, extraskeletal bone growing, and how you measure it and validate that, and have regulatory interaction to approve that as a primary endpoint and its statistical analysis approach. So a lot of challenges. However, at Ipsen, we really believe that the biggest challenge should be faced for the benefit of patients, and we invested and we showed tenacity and brought that new treatment to patients who had none before. But that's a very specific challenge we see in ultra-rare disease. There are other challenges in rare disease, like the liver disease space we're in. Some are similar in the sense that for biliary atresia, we again trailblazing. There are no approved treatment for biliary atresia. That is a very rare cholestatic disease where bile ducts are not developing, and you see its manifestation very early in neonates, so newborn babies, where bile is produced in the liver but cannot flow out. so a lot of inflammation and a lot of destruction of the liver environment. We are the first company running a phase 3 placebo-controlled studies with a hard endpoint that will measure a clinical outcome of liver transplant or death. So we're really measuring the impact at maintaining the native liver function for as long as possible. Those are true challenges in terms of running clinical trial. In biliary atresia, those very young babies need first surgery, that is to a Kasai procedure that allows to link the liver to the intestine to create a flow of bile surgically, and then we can treat. So within the first 90 days of life, those babies need to get under the knife, get a Kasai procedure, and then we can apply a treatment. Because even with that procedure, most biliary atresia patients will be in need of a liver transplant in the 2 to 5 years of age. So the patient voice is extremely important in any clinical trial, because the patients are partner with us in testing new approaches, and we need to understand what their journey is through the disease, but also through the clinical trial we design. In rare disease, it's even more important because there are not many clinical trials that have been designed. So when you're trailblazing, be in FOP or in biliary atresia, we worked with the physicians, so the key opinion leader in the field, but the physician treating and supporting those patients, but also patient foundation that really support patients, especially in the rare disease space. There are specific foundations like IFOPA, that is the foundation for FOP, and there are PBC foundations and PFIC, etc. So we work with the foundation, but also we work directly with the patient when they're adults, or with the parents, the family, to understand and get their input into what is a practical approach to a day in the life of those patients, and how can we take that into consideration in how we design our clinical trial. Some very basic but very important endpoint, how much blood can you collect from a patient, because we have to make analysis, well, very different from an adult patient versus a 90-day baby. How often do you sample? How many measurements can you build in one day? What can be done on site in a hospital, but what could be done at home, for example? Are there endpoints we could collect, not via a hospital visit? What can we do to make this clinical trial easier for the patient? And that can influence the outcome of the clinical trial, to try and make it as easy as possible for the patient to stay on study. So Ipsen has been present in oncology for many, many years, and in particular in rare indication. And maybe I'll take the most recent example of pediatric low-grade glioma with our in-licensing of tovorafenib. So we're talking about a very rare cancer that affects young children, often diagnosed around the age of 7 or 8. It's a very slow progressing cancer. And interestingly, this is an indication where if the patient fares well with their disease, when they reach adult life, then this will resolve itself. However, for the active years prior to adulthood, the cancer can present in many different forms. It can be very discrete growth on the brain that can be surgically removed. And in that case, that's the first line of treatment, if it's very isolated and contained. If it's not, then the patient will undergo quite aggressive chemotherapy. And chemotherapy in a 7-8-year-old is very, very heavy. And at that age, you're in growth trajectory. So what we did is look for a new approach with this MAP kinase RAF inhibitor. It's the newest generation of RAF inhibitor with tovorafenib to bring a different innovative solution. And that solution can be an alternative to chemotherapy. There's some very encouraging data that supported the approval of tovorafenib in the US with our partner Day One. And we have submitted an application for approval ex-US where Ipsen has licensed the right and is bringing that innovative treatment to a young patient with pediatric low-grade glioma ex-US, so in many different territories. This is a cancer, when you think about the patient and the parents, right? They have a big decision to take. Do we not treat and hope that the tumor will be located where it has less effect? But for example, some tumors are located on the optic nerve. And that means the patient, the child, will lose partially or fully will lose sight. That is a big impact on a patient's life. So difficult decision for the parent to take, a limited treatment approach. And this is why there's a need for new treatment. And this is why we decided to partner to bring tovorafenib as a new option for those patients. So in FOP, let's go back to rare bone disease. So we have next generation of treatments. So following Sohonos, our first approved treatment, first and only approved treatment for FOP patients, we have invested in an ALK2 mutant inhibitor with fidrisertib, that's the name of the molecule, and it's currently in final stages of a phase 2 pivotal study, registrational study called FALKON. And we are in the process of finalizing that study, should read out next year. And we should have, hopefully, a new submission, bringing a new differentiated treatment compared to Sohonos. It's very important because with fidrisertib, we can treat patients as early as 5 years old. Currently, Sohonos is restricted for patients 8 or 10 years old and older, because of its mechanism of action. Fidrisertib will cover earlier patients and have a differentiated efficacy safety profile to Sohonos to bring a second option for patients. Not every patient will respond to one type of therapy, so we're very excited about bringing a new opportunity in that space. That's reading out soon. We also have next year readout of our Bylvay or the Vixabat molecule in biliary atresia. So that would be the third indication in pediatric rare liver disease. And there are no treatment for biliary atresia. There is nothing approved today, and that is reading out towards the end of 2026. And as I said, with the only company currently with a placebo-controlled phase 3 study with hard endpoint. So we're very excited about that study and its readout. And finally, we had this year, I want to touch back on that, in adult liver disease, some really exciting early results of a phase 2 with elafibranor in primary sclerosing cholangitis, where again, there are no approved treatment. So again, here we are really innovating and pushing the boundaries, and we're currently designing and will consult with regulatory authorities on the path to a registrational study. So quite a lot happening in terms of bringing innovation in both rare bone disease and rare liver disease. You know, at Ipsen, every program we start is rooted in strong science. So really, we are following up very strong scientific base, and we match this with high unmet medical need, and we will continue to go where no one else dares to go, and to design studies that will be there to really tackle the difficult symptoms that the patients are experiencing, because we truly believe that, every patient should live a life that is to the full of its possibility. So we will keep pushing boundaries and matching scientific innovation to need, and continue to invest, continue to work with regulatory authorities to make this path easier, and so that we can be truly transformational for patients.